Hello, my name is Cindy Davis, Content Director for AV Technology. And with me today is Sandi Stambaugh, Senior Vice President of Product Management at TD SYNNEX. And we're here today to discuss AV technologies in education. So Sandi, we've got so much to cover, and this is such a great topic. Thanks for being with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's talk about what it means to have a successful one-to-one program in schools.
Yeah, one-to-one. Woo, that's been such a topic over the past couple of years. During the pandemic, as you know, every campus, every student, every teacher moved very, very quickly to get to one-to-one. A lot of the school districts have been attempting to get there over the past maybe 5-10 years, but it was really sort of a nicety, and it was really only certain school districts that had been able to really get that funded and make progress there. And so almost overnight, every school district scrambled to make it happen. It's definitely been it's been a wild ride over the past couple of years trying to get there. But beyond one-to-one for students, it's also about the professors and about the teachers and the administrators that also had to be supported, and their needs just looked a little bit differently. So absolutely. So one-to-one's been a hot topic, and one that that now I think that we're starting to get to what that success looks like, right? Beyond just the device, the PC device within those schools.
And is that really any different for K through 12 or higher ed?
I think that the functionality and the needs are a little different. I think that, especially and actually even beyond just K-12 and higher ed, looking really at K through 3, and then from 3 to, really through 9, and then 9 to 12, right? I think you can really break it up in the needs for the different students at different levels. And then, once you get into specialization in the higher ed world, right? So definitely, I think that the needs are significantly different, and the requirements for both the teachers as well as the consumers of that technology are different in each space.
Yeah, great. So it's really a hard thing for some, whether it's higher ed or K through 12 or or below, uh, really understanding the different policies, the public sector policies, and what's needed. So how does someone really work in lockstep with vendors and integrators?
Yeah, I'll tell you, from a TD SYNNEX perspective, we really saw that as a need in the market with our partners, really struggling to understand, the funding streams and the regulations and the requirements and privacy rules and those types of things that are definitely front and center within this topic. So what we did is we actually hired SMEs. So we have former school administrators, technology coordinators, both that represent, had formal roles both in higher ed and also in a K through 12, kind of world. And they were able to bring that perspective back. We also, have specialists around the funding stream, so grant specialists and E-rate specialists, contract specialists that are helping with the state level and in some cases GSA contracts that these schools are needing to tap into to get funding to to fill this requirement. So specialization I think is important. Being able to have someone to lean into that can help provide that guidance is important. And certainly TD SYNNEX has made those investments. We also have partnered with folks like NSCA, right, where they have, they've got a pretty good understanding and focus around the regulations associated with these schools, and are able to share that with their membership as well as TD SYNNEX.
So when it comes to AV, people think of devices, monitors, cameras, microphones, but it's much more than that. So what are some of the other parts of a robust AV ecosystem in schools?
Yeah, it is so much further beyond that, right? Historically, we've had different types of integrators that we've seen active in kind of, providing the technology in education. we were sort of, when we talk about it, it's kind of behind the wall, front of the wall. So, IT centric, behind the wall, and then certainly the PCs involved in one-to-one, and then really the front of the wall stuff is really the fun stuff with an AV. And what we've seen over the past many years is that really come together, and requirement of understanding not just the front of the wall technology and those kind of devices, within those monitors and cameras and microphones and PA systems and security systems and that type of thing, but also that incorporating the infrastructure and things like network security, and having the full physical security space. It's beyond the camera now. It's really about threat detection and video management and analytics and AI. And there's just so much that pulls together that full system. So it really is more of a cohesive system now that incorporates that digital communication network, collaboration, and interoperability between the different systems. Really that kind of pull those devices together. So it's a cohesive and system, but then also it's a good experience for the teachers and the students and the administrators.
Talk about that ecosystem. We've all known in the past couple of years are inexperienced horrible audio, and audio is got to be. It really is the number one component of a successful remote experience, because if you can't hear, you can see everybody, but if you can't hear them, you don't have anything. So talk a little bit about that audio experience.
Yeah, I mean, audio is definitely front and center. It's become even increasingly important during the pandemic, especially as we're looking at the younger population, right? The elementary school students who don't quite know how to read yet. They're learning and they are trying to understand how to enunciate, and so definitely that audio piece has been a challenging part, but also a really important part for our AV integrators. That's when they get kind of pulled into the conversation on how do we improve this, how do we improve audio in the classroom, and especially in some of those larger rooms, and then again, on that one-to-one basis, it's a lot to think about and a lot to consider, and certainly a very important part of the ecosystem. And then also looking beyond that into the full campus or the full school, as a part of communications. It's beyond digital. It's also these audio communications, whether you're using it for just announcements and communication or security in some cases. And so really, really important that it's completely connected as an important part of that full network.
Absolutely. And digital signage in school lobbies and sporting events has really become much more prevalent in the past, certainly 2019 and before, but even more so recently with the prices coming down. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think prices coming down is a big part of it. I also think that consumers are requiring a certain experience, and you are able to deliver that experience through digital communications. And so whether it's the fun stuff at the football game and being able to share information, but also within the walls of a school or within the kind of surrounding areas of a campus, incorporating those digital communications is really important. And then also not just on the screen, but also incorporating things like mobile technologies as a part of that communication, attaching it to the full network. So it even pops up if you're in a PC lab, it pops up on the monitor. It's incorporating the full network infrastructure so that the communications are there, and then also the ability to lock down in a safety situation is there as well. It's a really important part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And which really brings us into the next topic, which is, unfortunately, this is a difficult topic, but a very necessary topic when we talk about school safety. And what role does the AV play in campus security?
Yeah, it's an important topic, and you're right. It's it just keeps coming up, right? So it's got to be a big part of, as you're incorporating any technology within, whether it's K-12 or in higher ed, really public spaces. security has to be front and center in the conversation. And AV is a big part of that, right? So being able to build in things like AI into these AV solutions, threat detection versus just reaction, right? So not just cameras, but these systems that allow for early identification of known threats or potential threats. And then incorporating, the video management, the monitoring, audio, locking down the digital communications, network at that time. It's a really important part, and those are our AV integrators, right, that can make that happen. They are the experts in that space, and so yeah, they're an important part of the conversation.
Go back a little bit. I'm interested in when you said AI. What role does AI have, and how does that really work with the different AV
Yeah.
systems?
So we have partners that that we've aligned with that have offerings that really kind of are monitoring spaces, right? And so when there is a threat or a potential threat, or someone coming into a space that shouldn't be there, or that that falls outside of the parameters of kind of the normal day-to-day activity within that space, it sends an alert, right? So it's that, it's constantly monitoring, and then it's so you're not having to have people sit there and watch the monitor, because it's just not as effective, right? But if you can watch an entire space, build a bubble around a space, and have your software and your cameras monitor that, and then use that AI to pull up potential threats, it's just a little bit more of effective, hopefully effective solution, to prevent or eliminate some of those threats. And so, yeah, we've got partnerships with folks that do that. I think that, it's come a long way. We are hoping to see even more advancements, right? So that hopefully we're not having to have these conversations, but it really is about, detecting that threat as early as possible. Obviously having those plans in place, but that threat detection is something that, through the technology that we deliver, we can really help the story.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if somebody was entering the building from, a rear door or something like that, this AI would pick that up.
It does other things like heat mapping as well. So if it monitors and there's steady stream of traffic in a typical day, and all of a sudden you see a big crowd, around a space, well, that's an alert, right? So it's pretty interesting the way that it works. We've got a couple of partners that are the experts within that space, and that'll come alongside our partners and help them, build that story, and help hopefully provide the right solution to the schools that they serve.
Interesting. So you mentioned mobile technologies earlier, and I know there's monitors in there as well. So does this tie into the mobile technologies?
It does, and I think specifically I was referring to the communications within kind of the mobile ecosystem that exists within either a school or on a campus. And again, we've got several partners that when they're thinking digital communications, it's beyond just the screen, right? It is incorporating beaconing. It's incorporating these kind of mobile technologies, and the ability to send either things like revenue generating, like ads and those types of things, but also alerts, which I think is really important part of what we're talking about right now. But yeah, absolutely. So it's just really thinking about that full communications network and incorporating communications to all of those spaces.
And again, you also mentioned NSCA earlier, and we know that they have a program called Partner Alliance for Safer Schools. You want to talk a little bit about that?
They do. So we've been big partners with with Chuck and Tom and the guys at NSCA for years and years, and this has been a passion project for sure, for Chuck and for the team, and certainly a passion for us as well. And so yeah, that this their past program is a great resource for their members, certainly has been for us and for others, across the nation, that are trying to figure out, this really hard topic, right? How do we make our schools safer? And so they've spent a lot of time, and a lot of energy around building out these guidelines. and something that can be used as a reference or even just rolled out to help support the schools. And so so we're like I said, we support most of what NSCA does. A good partnership there, but really excited about what they've done around PATH and what that means to our integration community as they're trying to help deliver those safer schools.
Sandi, let's talk about the connectivity and collaboration piece of the equation.
Yeah. So, I mean, big part of it, right? You can't have a cohesive solution without the right connectivity, the right interoperability, and then also, just overall, it's got to be a strong offering around collaboration, especially now, right? So, as we're trying to, certainly virtual and, and learn where you are, kind of work where you are, kind of the world that we live in now. But also as we're also trying to kind of get back a little bit to more of a hybrid structure, it's really important. And so, having the devices is one thing. We talked about that a few minutes ago, right? But these solutions must be greater than the sum of its parts. And so you've got to have the connectivity, really even beyond just a reliable internet to make that happen overall. So, you've got to consider the platforms and how they're working together. How are you working to manage the video and the data, the offering that we have for collaboration and the security and signage and the overall infrastructure. Again, it's got to connect. It's got to be a fully cohesive technology offering if the experience is going to be a good one for the consumer.
Yeah, there's really a lot to consider there. So what are some of the platforms you're employing, that you're using to play the media?
Yeah, so we have a number of partners that have really taken a look at, again, specialization within the space, right? So in most cases, it's not the same platform across the different segments of K-12 or into higher ed as well. But we've really aligned with partners that have specialized within that space and really taken a look at the needs of those classrooms or that learning environment, and have been able to deliver, a really great functioning solution, to support that. So, great partners out there. Obviously we also aligned with many of the I guess tier one players within, a little bit less specialized, but tier one players from a platform perspective within communications as a whole, and collaboration as a part of that. But the specialized players are really the ones going in and solving the unique problems within the technology or the technical schools, the K-3 learning environments and that type of thing. So it's really important to have a good understanding of those players, and then also be able to leverage what they offer and align that with the important applications within the space as well.
So cables, adapters, connectors, I mean, they all play a role in ensuring devices are interacting properly. And we all hear, it's like, oh, go into the conference room, meeting space, whatever, and either the right cable's not there or it's just not working. Any advice, sage advice there?
I mean, you're right. I mean, we had a meeting here today, a hybrid meeting, and ended up with that same situation. So I really think that it's about just being thoughtful about the experience that you're trying to deliver within the space, right? And starting there and then working backwards. And that's, I think that we're all going through that right now. Every integrator or partner that we have, customer of ours, we're having those discussions around, their customers now going back to public space, going back to, a work environment or a teaching environment or a learning environment. And now that we've been, virtual for 2 years, having to understand, okay, now what am I going to have to make sure is here and ready for these guys to be, seamless in their learning or their working in any environment. And so, yeah, the connectivity is a significantly important part of that. And, I would just say being proactive, being deliberate and intentional about, the technology that you've delivered in that space is really important.
So the pandemic forced schools across the globe to adapt to remote learning. And for K through 12, it's, everybody went home. Well, actually, everybody went home. But K through 12 has that experience going forward has been different than it is for higher ed. Higher ed, certainly, there's a lot a lot of remote learning still going on. And that's actually a trend that had started before the pandemic, all forced during the pandemic, and is continuing. And in fact, in some cases, the high flex model is becoming more widely used. And with K through 12 going forward, storms are no longer going to poor kids.
No more
Storms
snow days.
I know, no more snow days in the Northeast. That's not good. So really, no more snow days. So it really enabled a whole got really teachers and professors kind of up and running on how to go remote. So talk a little bit about some of the results that you're seeing from this. That's certainly one of them. But talk about going forward. What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it just created this world of flexibility, right? Flexibility not just for students and for professors and teachers, but also for parents, which also created a different work environment as well, right? And that's one that we're kind of trying to understand how to unlayer from a little bit. But it truly produced this new generation of digital learners, and I think that children probably were a little bit further along than we were, that we had to catch up quick, right? But the teachers and the students and the administrators, everyone, the parents, they're a lot savvier now. If we think about where we were 2 years ago and where, folks are today, I remember describing to one of the groups that I was meeting with on a regular basis, describing what Zoom was, on the front end. They said, oh, well, we're not going to be able to meet for a while. And we had to explain to them how to get on a call with Zoom, and many of us were doing that with our parents and our family members, right? Trying to stay connected. Well, the same thing happened in these environments. And I think that we're in a better spot because of that. Technology was used minimally probably pre-pandemic. Again, we talked a little bit about kind of one-to-one and what that looked like with schools. Certainly in higher ed, it was a little different, right? It was a little tech savvier, but in the K-12 space, there were some schools that were doing really well and they were ahead, and there were some schools that were not there yet. Had started to try to get to one-to-one, but weren't close, and it was like a 3-year or 5-year plan to get there, and overnight it had to change. But now these digital learners, I feel like they're in a place where they can advance maybe more quickly, right? And teachers, it's been an adjustment for them. It's been an adjustment and understanding, okay, there aren't snow days, and I have to be able to flip to virtual in a heartbeat, right? Or be able to handle a hybrid environment where maybe a few students are not there, and I've got some in the classroom in front of me expecting that attention. So that's been really tough, and the technology, to some extent slowed that down, right? So some of the schools just weren't there yet, and weren't able to make that happen. And so there's a few Band-Aids that were kind of put out there. But the other thing that I feel like it exposed is this kind of lack of digital equity, right? And that's something I think is a really important topic. There were, again, some schools that were not there yet. There were some schools where, internet, the student population didn't have internet at home and they weren't able to connect. And so those were problems that I think, there was an awareness, but maybe not at the level that it should have been. And it was really exposed during the pandemic. And so I think it's also encouraging maybe more equity and more inclusivity as well. And so that's something that I think that, we need to be aware of, and we all can come together and give back in those types of situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of government funds to get school districts in particular up to speed, especially with ensuring that there's, you think that everybody can go home, but you're right, not everybody has internet connection.
Yeah.
Right? So I do believe that there's been a lot of funds created or made available for that. And so hopefully that's going to, hopefully that will be resolved very soon. And it has been interesting to see that this is expanding not only the reach of higher ed as they've been doing over the years, but even as you mentioned with K through 12, if there's some kids that are sick and just can't make it to class, I mean they could potentially get in remotely. So
yeah, the other thing is that it's the knowledge that the students are gaining doesn't have to be just limited to that one educator, right? It's more global reach, more exposure, more ability to connect across, more networking, among these educators, across the country and across the globe in some cases, bringing kind of these experts into the classroom. And so I think that there's definitely some advancements we've made because of it as well, just beyond, being able to work from anywhere or learn from anywhere. It's really given us the ability to leverage talent, anywhere in the world. So it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, great point. And actually, that prospect is really exciting to bring in a lot more people from around the world into our classrooms. So really great topics. So, hey, how do, in particular, K through 12 decision makers get connected to an integrator to make all this happen?
Yeah, so we can help. We've got a network of education specialists, integrators that are out there that are focused on delivering really amazing technology solutions to the K through 12 world or into higher ed. And so, we don't sell directly to end customers. So we don't sell to schools and we don't sell to higher ed. But what we do is partner them with our integrators that do and that are able to service them. And so they can reach out to us at visualsolve@synnex.com. We'd be happy to get them connected.
Great. Well, this has been a great discussion. Wish we had more time, but I thank you for your time now.
Of course. It's good talking to you, Cindy.
Likewise.